Welcome to AI Snacks with Romy and Robbie, an AI literacy podcast for everyone interested in AI and robotics. And I really mean everyone. You don't need a degree in computer science or statistics. You can be a teenager or a teacher in school, a corporate executive or a leader in an NGO. This podcast, my Slack, my website, aiedutainment.ai, my family book series, Romy and Robbie, with the first edition, Robbie and the Secrets of Sleep, and my Instagram channel called Romy and Robbie are focused to democratize the knowledge of AI with the general public. So what is this edition of the Beyond Human series about? AI is no longer just a backstage tool in the creative process. It is becoming a full-fledged collaborator that challenges what it means to make and to own art. So I sit down with music and technology strategist Matthias Röder, who you have already met on previous episodes. Matthias is known for projects like completing Beethoven's 10th Symphony with AI. And we will ask a profound question: what actually happens when artists lean into AI rather than resist it? So Matthias and I will explore what happens when visual artists, composers, and performers weave machine learning systems into their daily practice. And we will mention plenty of names of individual creators, and we will even discuss an AI that is creating art and is governed by a collective of human artists. And of course, all the names and information will be in the show notes. Matthias and I will discuss whether artists can assert the right when training data and outputs can be scrapped, remixed, and redistributed at scale. And we will touch on the fast-moving landscape of digital copyright for AI-assisted works, from human authorship requirements to emerging proposals for licensing and collective rights models. But rights are only one side of the equation. Sustainable business models and monetization are the other. So we will touch on a very question: how artists and content makers can monetize AI-enhanced work through a number of models. We will mention NFTs and what they do for artists, and we will address a bigger challenge. And this is the need for a new educational track that teaches creators not just tools, but contract, data literacy, and the economics of being an artist in an AI-saturated world. So altogether, we zoom out to the broader ecosystem where technologists, model builders, lawyers, labels, galleries, and artists must learn to collaborate rather than collide. And this is a very important place. I would love to invite all the listeners into the conversation, not as spectators, but as future co-designers of the tools, norms, and alliances that will define the next chapter of art in the age of intelligent machines. And now let me open the studio and welcome Matthias Röder. Hey, Matthias, welcome to my studio.
Welcome, Anastassia.
It's great to see you again and chat with you about digital creators using AI in art. So let's have fun with this episode. Well, AI is quite a serious medium across art, music, obviously movies, performance art, with a handful of artists setting the tone for how humans and machines collaborate and maybe even influence each other. And I'll name a couple of my favorite. So I really like what Rafik Anadol is doing. He's a US and Turkish visual artist, and he uses AI models trained on vast image and data archives to produce large-scale immersive installations. I saw his work in Serpentine in London, and he was in MoMA with his work called Unsupervised. And that translated the data stream into constantly evolving visual environments. Then obviously you are in music. Probably you know artists and researchers like Holly Herndon and Matt Dryhurst. So I think Matt resides in Berlin. Holly Herndon is a composer, and both are exploring voice and identity. So they build systems that let other singers legally and ethically use Herndon's voice. And then we have a fabulous visual artist. She's a Canada-born but Chinese-raised artist, So Wen Chang. She resides in London. And we've got Sophia Kraspo, visual artist, and Yang Cheng. He builds virtual ecosystems, and he authored Emissary Guiding to Worlding, a book exploring the psychology and techniques of creating living autonomous worlds. And then, of course, we have Boto. And Boto is a decentralized autonomous artist, which is actually an AI. And this AI is guided by a decentralized autonomous organization. So you know terms about such organizations. DAO is the short term for this. And of course, I will put a video into the show notes showing the whole process and how Boto creates. The listeners can decide for themselves whether they like this art or whether they don't. But I would love to ask you, Matthias, what are your favorite creators using AI to make art?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned already a few. Holly and Matt are definitely amongst the OGs, the original gangsters in this field, and I know them personally and are following and follow. I think I would add Jeroen van der Most to the list. He's a Dutch artist, and he's doing a lot with AI. Very cool things from, using the works of Rembrandt and Van Gogh, and calculating with the pixels in their works, thing in his own works, and creating abstract art from these paintings. But he also has a cool project called, I think it's called something like Letters from Nature, where basically he has an AI that is writing in the character of a glacier or some distinct, almost extinct species. And this AI then writes letters to world leaders about the situation of nature in our. And it's a very cool conceptual piece of art. Um, there's someone in Germany who is, I think, in a way, very typical of what's happening in AI and art. His artist name is Mats Mensch, like in the Dadaist movement. And Mats Mensch is actually working in a normal day-to-day job, and he is an artist using all the different tools that are out there to create fascinating artworks in the visual field, but also in the field of poetry and interactive media. And I think he's very typical in this sense because this AI movement now allows people who are not trained in a specific field, let's say painting or sculpture or composition, to become artists and to really have a voice in this world of art. So he's very interesting. There's Stephanie Meisel, who is a Salzburg and Vienna-based artist. She has been working with the image generators for a very long time and has some fascinating artworks out there. So I think every day I find new people, and sometimes they are art insiders, sometimes they are art outsiders. In music, I should say that most composers by now are using AI in their workflow. So it's really hard to say who's your favorite AI artist in music anymore, because it is so much part of the daily workflow that it's really indistinguishable who's using AI and who isn't.
Behemoths, major institutions and fairs are starting to reflect this shift of artists using AI. So Art Basel in 2024 included collaborations with Artificial Self, which was a survey of AI in recent art history, featuring Carol Coyne's Aaron painting machine, Otis Community governed machine artist, and other work in terms of a digital art. We had a digital art mile in Basel and Art Blocks, a generative AI project brought on chain AI generated works into physical and fair context. And of course, I've already mentioned on our previous episodes the Biennale in Venice. So AI appeared as an immersive virtual reality world, for example, Magic AI art, Dimensions in Venice, immersive. And then AI appeared in collateral exhibitions, for example, Swell of Spaces. So visitors could co-create AI creatures from plankton data and non-Western archives. And then we had AI tracking plus AI drawing exhibition. They propped human-machine authorship. So, of course, collectors and insurance companies are now tracking AI art as its own category. I think it's quite interesting. And the reports highlight artists like Dmitry Chernyak, Eric Calderon, or Snowfro, and of course, already mentioned Rafik Anadol, Robbie Barrett, and those are considered to be key figures whose work have reached primary and secondary market prices in galleries and on auctions. I wonder, Matthias, how do you consider this commercial side of the art world responding to AI? What are the most progressive branches of the art industry? And how do you think about this commercialization? Because obviously artists, they're people, they need to eat, they need to feed their families. So how do you think about monetization of art, which is using AI?
Well, it's a really interesting topic. I think you take a look at art market in terms of painting, in visual art, and they're very progressive, and they're using this tool and this material to create new kinds of artwork, which are sometimes conceptual art and sometimes. And the use of this technology is just like any other kind of tool, I would say. And then you have fields like music, where the creation of new music with the help of AI is highly debated by the original players in the market, like publishing houses, labels, who say, well, the intellectual property rights that we own or that we have created or that we have licensed from artists for exploitation belong to us. And if you want to create an AI based on this material, you should get a license from us. It's a business. And there are lots of discussions about this happening right now. And most likely the future will look like it looks like with streaming, where the labels and the publishing houses are gonna give out licenses to big platforms that use recordings to create AIs. I think that from an artist perspective, it's healthy to use these tools as tools and not think about it as a question of, is this something that is real art or not? Because it's a question of how you employ it and what you do with it, rather than you like it or dislike it or block it. So I think we'll see a new kind of artist emerge, someone who's embracing the technology and is creative with it. And then the artists who are completely letting AI out of the picture, so to speak, they will have their place too. But I don't think it's gonna be a point of a unique selling proposition.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's very interesting because frankly, for example, some painters using their fingers and mostly their fingers to paint, yeah, to create fantastic, very realistic images of sky. So I've seen one exhibition in Basel with a painter doing this very fine, refined work. And then other painters obviously using graffiti. And all kind of spray. Thomas Schernauer, who he uses little jars to kind of pull the paint,
For the paint,
to drop the paint actually on those steel surfaces. And this is all about weight of this paint and how everything kind of penetrates each other. So, I mean, what is art? What is considered to be the right tool or the wrong tool? Frankly, we can't decide. And for me, it's all down to the question, why do people do art? Why do people write? So they might use certain techniques and certain technologies, but why do they express themselves? So or art is another language, right? The question is, of course, how is it? And frankly, I do not know anything about pricing mechanisms in the art market. Sometimes there are outrageous cases of AI-generated painting achieving superb prices in Sotheby's, and you just ask, why? Is it just like a hype, or is it something which kind of, called for a genuine agreement in the community of those powerful people reviewing art for Financial Times or New York Times or whatever, for major museums and galleries? But I mean, if I kind of, stay in this commercial kind of, bubble, I don't have the experience with NFTs. You do have experience with NFTs. So let's discuss financial products around art, including NFTs. And could you please explain those to the listeners who might not understand the concept? And could you please talk a little bit about whether it's successful, whether it's safe, and what does it do for the business models of art makers?
Well, these are very interesting and big questions, and I don't know if I have answers for all of those. NFTs are a technology which is connected with the blockchain and with cryptography, and the idea is to represent something that typically you can easily copy very easily, a digital piece of file, a digital file that represents an artwork or that represents a music piece, and to be able to say there is one copy of this digital file, which is the original. And if you own that NFT representation, then you are the owner of the underlying artwork. And you can then trade the artwork. You can sell it to someone else for either cryptocurrencies or for other kind of monies. And you can also fractionalize the ownership. So you can have an NFT which belongs to many different other addresses on that blockchain. And by fractionalizing the artwork, you can also have mechanisms to speculate on the price of the artwork or to also finance artworks. So an artist could issue an NFT and say it is fractionalized into 100 parts, and he can or she can sell 30 of those parts to someone to finance the creation of the artwork. So you basically have the NFT even before the artwork exists, and then with the money that you raise by selling these fractional parts of the artwork, you can finance the creation. Those are models that have been around for a while and which, sometimes were more en vogue than at other times. And I think NFT has been very huge a couple years ago. Now people don't talk about it that much anymore, but there are many artists who are still using it because the interesting part of it is really to be able to take something that can easily be copied and that can be everywhere around the internet and say, yes, but there are a limited amount of copies which are authorized by the artist through this NFT technology. And that becomes something that is collectible then, that is ownable. And this is, I think,
I
a
think
major
Masha,
breakthrough.
our friend Masha Burlakova, we need to bring her in to explain how those digital rights actually work and how they are managed, because she created one of the first platforms to manage digital art and digital rights for those creations. So that I will ask her, maybe she will pop up on one of our future episodes.
Yeah, this is the Scribe platform, which no longer exists, but Marsha and Trent McGonaghy, they were really, if you will, the father and mother of the NFT idea.
Absolutely. And I mean, frankly, so we all, the creators, just must think about how to fund their work because, we are all people. And this is kind of, one of those crowd funding mechanisms which might actually pay some of your bills and help you to explore the world and to create wonderful pieces. But it's kind of interesting. So this issue of the copyrights, and we talk all the time about tokens and how, let's say, painting might be digitized, and then you have a collection of pixels, right? And one pixel on itself might not represent value, but when they are all together, obviously it's a piece of art and we might enjoy it. So those who are defending LLMs companies are saying, how can you put a stamp on those tokens? And those are like grains of rice or of sand on a beach. They don't represent the beach itself. They might be configured into a certain beach if we are talking about sand. So, how do you think about copyright in all those digital projects? And I would include actually literature, fiction writing, scientific writing into this mixture because, we might explore how someone in technology take the content and trains AIs with help of this content.
What's really interesting, in my opinion, is that if you create something, you rarely do it in a vacuum. You have seen other artworks before, you are informed by what other artists have done before you or are doing at your time. And all of this flows into your art as well. Sometimes more, sometimes less. This is something that is not new in the world of creativity. And if you can think of it like an LLM does the same thing. If you train an LLM with all of the texts that have been written before, then that model will contain all of those representations, these ideas, you could say, this text, the styles, and so on. And it has learned from them. And then when it produces something, all of that is part of what has been produced. So is an artist using the ideas of someone when they write a new poem? Yes, they are. Are they infringing on the copyright of those who came before? In most cases, not. So why then would an LLM infringe on the copyright of those that it has seen in the training? It's a difficult argument to make, in my opinion. You could say, well, it's different because this is at scale. It's different because you have not been remunerating the artists for their copies of the works that the AI has seen in the training, which is different from a human. You have to pay an entrance fee to go to a museum to see the Van Gogh paintings. You have to buy a book with the images and stuff like this. So it's difficult to make arguments in this direction or that direction. I think fundamentally what the AI is doing is not different from what humans have been doing before. So in my opinion, we should find a way forward which allows all of that creativity and that also allows the people who have created the models to monetize them and have an incentive to be doing that in the future as well. Because what I don't want to see is a situation in which we basically put a stop to this technology because we just are overprotective of the intellectual property rights of artists and companies who represent them.
Yeah, I started working with Juliet Relstad, who is a publisher in New York, and she represents in the US a company, which is a European company from, I think, Milan and Berlin called Amlet AI. And they are building the first ever registry for writers, for authors to register their creations with their platform. And they then track whether those pieces of work are used in AIs to be trained on this data. So I would love to explore how they do it, how many creators have already signed up. So I would love to bring the founders of the company on this podcast to talk exactly about that. But do you think this content registry is something which is useful, or do you think it doesn't matter? So what is your thinking there?
I think it's a great idea because it's helpful to track where something comes from. It's also very interesting, I think, from a conceptual standpoint, to understand this artwork has been informed by, these 1,000 other artworks. And what you could do is a new kind of art science also. And you could understand the evolvement of styles and influence in a completely new way. So I think it's very interesting. I would be careful to use it in a limiting way.
Yeah, no, I'm actually absolutely with you on that. A while ago, I received a letter from some law firm in the US, and they were claiming that they won against Anthropic, which utilized thousands and thousands of books to train Claude. And they were suggesting to look up whether some of my books were used to train the LLM, and then they agreed on a certain fund to compensate authors. So I know several writers who absolutely go for it. It's just interesting how those things form, and we should never forget that litigation is a business, and lawyers will find ways to actually monetize their legal expertise in an environment which is starving for clarity. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
true.
I don't believe that just one case will kind of, reform what we currently believe to be true about copyrights and regulation, right? And I think that humans should have a right to possess their voice, their singing, just the use of their voice. And if someone digitizes it without the permission, I think that should be trackable. How do you think about those laws in Scandinavian markets, which give people right to really own their digital self?
I have not read these laws or seen them before. I think in general, it's a good idea to give people control over their creations and to give them control over their own identity and the way they are represented. And I think in the past, we have had situations like this before where we found good ways out. For instance, think about the big search engines ingesting content from websites and how we manage that with the robotext file that is machine readable, that can give permission to take the content from the website or not. So we have built a whole ecosystem around these ideas. And I think the same could be done for AI. So being able to trace, being able to identify is the first step. And then the second step is building an infrastructure that makes it clear also for the technology providers what they can use and what they cannot use. This whole thing also has a very important aspect to it, which a lot of people don't see. Right now, when you have a website, you have the crawlers of Google and other search engines look at it on a regular basis. But the data which is on the website is often optimized for these search engines and their indexing technology. Now, increasingly, AIs are looking for your website as well. And the content on that website should also be optimized for these AIs, for the LLMs, who need to have the information in different ways. And if you, as an artist, try to exclude all of your content from AI indexing, then you are not taking place in the discussion anymore, because people use the LLMs increasingly to search for information and to inform themselves about what is happening. And it's your decision if you want to be part of that discussion or not, and in which way. So if you are proactive with the technology and if you use the LLM text system which has now been created, then you have more control over how you are represented in the LLMs that are crawling your website. And I think those are aspects that a lot of people forget. It's a question of how you want to be part of the social memory, if you will, of artworks.
I think this is such an important aspect, what you're touching on. No one has actually cracked the code. What is the best mix in how do you position yourself as as an artist and as a content creator, as a writer, on the web? Because let's say 10 years ago, website was the king and the queen, and so you should not be repeatable. So if you publish something on the website, it should not appear on LinkedIn, because otherwise the search algorithm will kind of devalue your contribution to this website. Today, we have the traditional search algorithms. At the same time, we have LLMs, and LLMs, they actually like if you repeat your content.
Yeah.
And if you are across, let's say you are on Substack and you are on Medium, and then you are on some art forum sites. So they like it. They like what they see. And this is a very different mechanism. And, the search is still out there. And then the LLM based search is coming in, but big, big time. And I'm really wondering how this will level up and whether it will level up at some point in time.
In a way, you could look at the art market as a blueprint for this also. In the art market, you have people who make opinions, who write about art, who collect art, who run museums. And what they say and what they do is observed by everyone else in the market. So if you look at the LLM search engines like Perplexity, for instance, in general, they will look at certain websites for the information. You can do any search and you can then see the sources it uses. And it typically uses these question and answer websites. Those are always in the set of sources. And they value very much what's on there. So if you don't put your information on these websites, then you will not appear in the search results. And maybe the places that you care about as an individual are not even looked at by these LLMs. So how do you deal with that? I think if you do social media or if you are a content producer or if you are an artist, you have to think about these questions and you have to find answers for yourselves. For which kind of audience would you like to appear and how would you like to appear? And then you have to act on that. And this is very difficult because the algorithms also on LinkedIn or other platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and so on are not very transparent. You don't know how they work. So you have to observe a lot and learn from examples.
And
It's complex.
Matthias, just looking at all of this from an educational lens,
Uh-huh.
what skills, beyond craftsmanship and artistry, but what skills should the next generation of artists, writers, and composers develop to thrive in an AI-rich environment?
I think that we'll see a lot of collaboration because all of these skills in one person, that's extremely rare. Like Jeroen van der Most, who I mentioned earlier, he's just a very tech-savvy person. And Matt and Holly are also programmers, they are writing the code themselves and they learn about this, have been learning about this their whole life. That's the exception. And most people will probably form groups of individuals who work together on this. So I think it will be quite common for an artist to team up with an IT specialist, with someone from social media marketing, and create this selection of skills as a group.
The most difficult question at the end. So how do you imagine the ecosystem of arts, let's say, first 5 years from now and then maybe 10 years from now? And what is the healthy relationship between, let's say, digital savvy creators, technologists, and AIs, and then humans? So how do you think about human creativity in the future? So first 5 years mark and then 10 years mark.
I always try to avoid answering these questions, but I think I cannot get out of this one. Oh yeah. It already feels like old year. Well, first of all, I think we'll see this development of groups working together much more. Collaboration between individuals. And then using AI in the process to optimize their workflows, but also to be challenged what the content can be. I think we're going to see a lot more non-traditional artists come in and be players in the art market. We've seen this in music, and it's always a little bit ahead of the curve, the music market, where people out of their bedroom are creating number one hits. Um, and this kind of situation, I think we will see over the next 5 years also in other words, parts of the art world. This is sounding small probably to a lot of our listeners, but for the art world, this is huge, to not have control over who's considered an artist. That is something that a lot of people in that world don't appreciate.
Absolutely.
I think what
Matthias. I mean, all those impressionists, which are now considered like, this huge, mountain of creativity, and those geniuses, they were thrown out by l'Académie Française at some point in time. And, their art was not considered an art.
Yeah. Now you see the same thing happening in Hollywood, which, we should also discuss if we talk about art. They are now called, what are they called? Not AI artists, but synthetic performers. These AI models that are essentially actors. And you can use them in your films. This is something very new in that world. And I think this kind of artificial artist idea will be more prevalent in the next 5 to 10 years. So there will be artists who are synthetic and artists who are human. And then also probably artists where you don't know, are they synthetic? Are they human? A combination of the two. So teams of them working together. This is the kind of future that I kind of see.
I'm just thinking about a new job category, which would be a coach for collaboration between technologists and creatives. And this is a very new type of skills which is emerging. We have all those coaches, for example, how to create this new future of work when it's about hybrid, but it's about, delivering leadership. Even if your team is somewhere very far away and you never see the people in real, only on screen, I think that we might see a new type of cultures for this collaboration to emerge. So probably the jury is out, but I think it would be just logical to witness.
I just have an idea right now, Anastassia. Why don't we sit down together and we create a new Master of Art in AI program? And, it's going to contain a lot of these things that we talked about, skills in technology, skills in marketing, skills in understanding search engines, but also the artistic disciplines. And then, of course, using the AI technology in an artistic way. And students go through all of these different facets. And at the end, they have a better chance of surviving in that new kind of art market, also financially. I think that would be a really cool thing to have for art schools.
Absolutely. And by the way, talking educational institutions, so this is my largest frustration, how people are treated by, let's say, the usual academia. And of course, the search now is to bring practitioners. So people who were not kind of, raised in academia, who came in from different walks of life, bringing practical experience, and how those people are treated and compensated. This is really a scandal. And maybe we should just set up something which is really the online school for something like this, because that would be easier than knocking on a thousand of doors and arguing with people who clearly are against anything what is innovative and new.
Yeah, I just had a conversation with Gino Yu yesterday from Hong Kong, and he's a professor in a university, but he's exploring all of these online opportunities now, with goggles where you can be in the same room and teach people who are somewhere in the world. And he said something very important, I think, and that is that education is no longer about the teaching of skills and vocational aspects of doing a job later on. It's actually a journey of self-reflection and understanding yourself much better. And
Oh,
this
absolutely.
I think this is something that a lot of people in the university haven't understood yet, but this is what people are looking for right now.
And by the way, education is about attitude as well. and about role models, frankly. So we are very hungry to have new role models in a world which is really completely disrupted by bad politics, wars, and so-called leadership, which is clearly failing all of us, whether we are in Europe, in the United States, or else in the world.
Yeah,
Well,
I think I have so many thoughts. We have at least five new episodes coming out of this one.
Well, I mean, and this is why I adore really having you even virtually on screen, and we will see each other in a couple of days. So I'm really thrilled. So on this happy note, let us conclude this episode of AI Snacks. And Matthias, looking so much forward to do the fourth edition of Beyond Human with you. Congratulations on your work. I see a lot from you across different social channels. And of course, all the notes to your work will be put into the show notes to this very episode. We are having now 6,000 listeners of this podcast. So I am kind of excited because 6 months ago, we had only 1,000. So there's growth,
Amazing.
and it means that people are kind of discovering that this content is important. And maybe we've just passed the threshold in terms of algorithms are watching us, and now they allowed us into, let's say, a bigger pond to swim in.
It's amazing what you've created with this series, and it's a role model for me. I started a new newsletter, which I write daily from Monday to Friday, a little bit on AI every day. And it's mainly for me to learn, to be honest,
Oh,
And,
but
and
by
this,
the way, the first book, which I published 30 years ago, it was an insurance book. I wrote it because I needed to learn about insurance. I was not,
awesome.
an insurance specialist. I came with the background of psychology and computational linguistics. And, how do you become a professional? You write a book.
Yeah, exactly. Teach it and write a book.
Okay, Matthias, thank you so much. I say to everyone, goodbye for now, and I will see you next week.
See you, and greetings to Roby. Bye.
And that concluded another episode of AI Snacks with Romy and Robbie, your place for bite-sized inspiration on how AI is shaping our world and our future. And before you go, here's something exciting. This October, we'll be sharing a special AI literacy project at the House of Lords in London, a milestone moment for our mission to make AI knowledge accessible to everyone. We'll be unveiling new insights, stories, and educational tools to empower leaders, educators, and families to navigate the age of intelligent technologies with confidence and creativity. And I'd love to bring your voice into this journey. If you have questions, reflections, or topics you'd like us to explore, set them our way. Your curiosity shapes our content. You can connect with us on aiedutainment.ai or through our LinkedIn community, where we are building an open, curious, and supportive space for AI learners of all backgrounds. And if you haven't yet grabbed your copy of Romy and Robbie and the Secrets of Sleep, our storytelling series that turns AI concepts into relatable adventures, please go on Amazon.com or on the book website www.romyandrobbie.ai. It's a beautiful way to start or deepen your journey into AI literacy, whether for yourself, your team, or your family. And so I will see you next week. Stay curious, stay kind, and keep learning. Together, we are not just talking about AI, we are shaping its story. Thank you.